Well, we are on Radio Row, Scott and BR, and Billy Ray. This is an interesting interview I think we're about to do, because you always find people and you think to yourself, why is this guy at the Super Bowl,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
And so here is, when you say the name Jim Leyritz, what do people immediately think? They think Yankees.
Right.
They think World Series champions.
That's it.
But what some people may not remember, I'm sure plenty of Padre fans do, is that Jim Leyritz was part of the Padres in 1998. Right. And here he is. So we'll start with this. Jim Leyritz, first of all, great to see you. What are you doing here?
You know what? It's interesting. I work for Sports One Marketing now, which is Warren Moon's company.
Sure, we know Warren well.
Yeah, obviously Warren's being honored this year at the Super Bowl, and so David Meltzer and I do a radio show together, and we came down here to be on Radio Row to kind of promote our show.
And David Meltzer, by the way, is a lifelong San Diegan. I say it two ways, because he left and he's come back, and I mean, he's a real San Diegan.
He's a diehard Charger fan,
right.
Diehard everything. Yeah, I mean, and so yeah, I went to work for them a couple years ago and been doing that, and so we're down here kind of promoting our show. We have a show called The Sports Blender, and it's on SB Nation, and it's
Love the name.
well, you know what it is. It's a weekly show. We do kind of business sports. David gives the marketing agent side, and I give the player side on some of the biggest topics that are going on, you know, in the sports. And so it's a kind of a different twist. You know, it's not an update show. It's not one of these things that we have to watch a game every single night. We're kind of doing more big topics.
Talk to us. Start us off with this. So again, somebody says Jim Leyritz, I immediately think Yankees.
Yeah.
But I'm so curious to hear about your time in San Diego, because I will say it preceded me. Billy Ray, of course, you were there.
I was there.
You were there in the late 90s. You were part of that World Series team, and as I recall, hit a big home run for the Padres in the divisional series here in Houston in the old Astrodome. Let's not. Don't cut me short here.
Yeah, don't cut me short. No, I hit the game-tying home run in Game 2, but then we wind up losing.
And I think it was the top of the ninth inning.
Yep.
You hit that home run.
Yep.
The Padres lose in the bottom of the ninth inning.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the first one. Then the next night, I hit the game-winning home run in the seventh inning off Scott Earlton to be the game winner. And then the next day, I let off my first at bat off Randy Johnson with a home run. So it was kind of a good run that we went on there. And then in the Atlanta series, hit one big one there too. And unfortunately, we didn't win that game either. But
Do you have a best favorite story from those teams in those days?
well, yeah, I mean, the 1998 Padres were unbelievable. You know, the fans were great. And I always tell the story. They always say, "What's the difference between Yankee fans and San Diego fans and playing in both cities?" And I said, well, you know, in 1998 we lost the World Series, but we still had a parade. I go, that doesn't happen in New York. And that's how great the fans of San Diego were, because they were so appreciative for a team like that to get back to the World Series. And one of my biggest disappointments is, now that I've lived in California for 6 years, I keep calling the Padres up and going, hey, bring me down, let me be part of the Padres again. And like, well, yeah, but people look at you as a Yankee. And I'm like, but I was a Padre.
Wait a second. Hold on a second. Let me tell you something right now. That's criminal, and I'm going to tell you why. Let me just tell you why. It's true your Padre career was short-lived. However, your impact on that team, people don't throw your name out there. They use Tony Gwynn's name. They use Trevor Hoffman's name. People will talk about Ken Caminetti's career, etc. But they forget that Jim Leyritz was a very impactful guy on that 98 team. And I think that the Padres should bring you back down, because right now, given where the Padres are, they should be celebrating their history as they're building towards their future.
Well, you know, last year's All-Star game there in San Diego was great, because they did kind of bring out about what that 98 team did, getting the new stadium. You know, we got that bill passed in November of that year to get that new stadium, and we just saw what happened with the football team. You know, it was very fortunate the baseball team got to stay there.
Yeah.
Can you come back and get a football stadium built? Can you do that?
Unfortunately, I couldn't play for the Chargers and make them win. To where we could do that. But to me, that's the interesting thing. And I think, like you said, I'm hoping over the next few years to be more involved. We have the World Baseball Classic coming up there this year. Be a part of that, do some things down there. And, you know, it's really kind of, now that I'm in California, it's like that's where I want to get my roots going a little more.
Interesting, by the way, that when that 98 year, you guys wind up playing the Yankees. So for people that consider Jim Leyritz a Yankee, which I think people do, and just on a side note, the Padres really should be celebrating Jim Leyritz's time with the Padres for this reason. If you say Jim Leyritz is a Yankee, I say Steve Garvey is a Dodger.
Yeah.
Yet Steve Garvey's number is retired by the Padres, and he is celebrated by the Padres organization, obviously, for what he had done almost 15 years earlier in the mid-'80s. So for them to not recognize or celebrate Jim Leyritz makes no sense to me. By the way, we're working on it from here on out. Just so you know, we're on it. We are on this thing. But when you see that '98 team went back to New York and obviously got swept by the Yankees. But I always remember being a kid watching the game, and they introduce you at Yankee Stadium, where frankly, as an opponent in the World Series, you should be booed.
Right.
But that wasn't the way Yankee fans treated you.
No. The Yankee fans have always been great, and it was funny when I first got traded to Anaheim. My first game back, they played "Welcome Back, Carter." They had a whole montage thing, but it was the same thing though. As soon as the first pitch is thrown, okay, you're no longer a Yankee. We're going to root against you.
I try and explain that to Padre fans. When Adrian Gonzalez comes with the Dodgers, you can cheer him during pregame introductions. Exactly. You boo him when he's at bat because he's a Padre killer.
Exactly.
That's the one thing, you said it so right. You lost the World Series, but still had a parade. That tells you everything you need to know about the Padre fan base, even today.
I'll give you even a funnier story. I get pulled into the locker room of the Yankee locker room because the stadium, the locker rooms are right next to each other in Qualcomm, and I get pulled in by David Wells, and they're like, "Hey, and Mr. Steinbrenner sees me, and he looks at me, he says, "Hey," he says, "You still the king?" And I said, "Well, of New York." I go, "But yeah, pretty much here in San Diego." He said, "We need to celebrate somewhere. Can you set it up for us?" I go, "Wait a minute, you just kicked my butt for 4 games. You want me to put your World Series party on?" And so I end up calling Junior Seau. At that time, he had the restaurant. And I called Junior up and say, "Hey, listen, can the Yankees come down and celebrate at your restaurant?" He said, "Yeah, as long as I get an autographed ball by them." And we end up celebrating I ended up celebrating the World Series with them down at Junior's restaurant.
By the way, David Wells is a San Diego legend.
Oh, I love him.
And he's a Yankee legend also. And again, he's another guy that, like you, wants to be more a part of the Padre organization.
Well, yeah, now he's teaching, he's coaching at Point Loma now at the high school, and he's really loving that. I know that. And yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because there's not a lot of guys that want to do that. And I would think that Padres, if they have guys that want to do it, especially with pretty decent names, that they would embrace it. And I'm hoping over, like I said, the next couple of years, that starts happening.
Jim Leyritz on Scott and BR on the Mighty 1090, and we're shooting video, which is kind of cool. People are going to get to see this. We're here.
I can hear it, and it sounds like you've been doing a lot of singing, like maybe last night or something.
My normal voice, man. It's always hoarse. Yeah, and everybody always says it. I'm like, nope. That's when I actually went to work for ESPN in the beginning. They sent me to all these doctors to see about nodules and all these things. I'm like, it's just my voice. And the really cool thing about it, though, is like we're sitting here doing the interview. People hear and they're like, that's Leyritz, because I know the voice.
Well, when you called Junior that night, he probably knew who it was.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is before caller ID, I can tell you that right now.
Exactly.
Let me ask you this, and this is going to change this conversation, which has been awesome thus far. But I think that there's probably a really inspirational story that you have to share with people also, because after baseball was over and you had this phenomenal career, championship career, et cetera, things took a weird turn for you in, 2007-ish, as I recall?
2007, end of 2007. Just after I had just got done covering the World Series for ESPN and Fox. I actually had to do the Red Sox, which was really tough to do. But I just got done covering that for them. And then in 2007, my birthday, December 27th, I had a DUI accident where I was drinking and driving, and so was the other driver. And
you were in Fort Lauderdale, as I recall.
I was in Fort Lauderdale, and I had a state attorney that was running to become a judge. She had a name, and she was going to do it till the end, and I wouldn't take a plea. I waited 3 years for trial, and it was one of those things that kind of like during my career, I would never take, if I was not in the wrong, that I would not take the easy way out.
But you had explain.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was
here.
You
Right, you had a DUI.
Yeah, that was the one thing I did wrong that night.
You got into a bad car accident, as I recall.
Yeah, the other driver came through a red light. She had been drinking and driving.
She was a bartender. I remember the story.
Yeah, it was just, I mean, it was really.
She died on the scene.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, she passed away that night, and I think that's one of the reasons why it became, where the state attorney wouldn't take a plea right away. It was like, okay, until she saw the evidence. Once the evidence was out there, once all the interviews happened, once we knew the condition that she was in, driving with no lights on, no seatbelt, all this other stuff, it was pretty obvious that I didn't cause the accident.
Even though you got a DUI.
Exactly. And I said from the very beginning, after 6 months, after all the depositions were done and everything, I said, listen, I will take a DUI. I was drinking and driving. I take responsibility for that, but I didn't cause this accident. I didn't cause her death. And it was just really kind of a Duke lacrosse type of thing with the state attorney.
I understand what you're
She
saying.
was using this to promote herself to become a judge,
Yeah.
and wouldn't let it go. And sure enough, once it got in front of a jury, it was thrown out in 30 minutes, and that was it. And one of the things, like I was just watching Josh Brown going through what he's going through. You know, during that time I was waiting for trial, I had a domestic violence situation where my ex-wife accused me of doing that. And we went through this whole thing where she almost got thrown in jail for it because
For
of the false
falsely
charges.
accusing, yeah.
You know, and that's one of the things that, you know, despite being innocent of all those things, it still creates a cloud that goes over you. And I think that's part of the reason why, you know, it's taken a long time for me to kind of get my name back, to get back to doing what I was doing before the accident.
That's what I'm getting at when I say inspirational. You know, sometimes guys go through what you've gone through, and they just sort of disappear.
Yeah.
What? I'm just curious, because again, people are going to watch this, and they're going to know who you are as Padre fans, and they're going to remember that great run, but they're also going to hear this part of your story in your life. What did get you to go? Because again, you're getting accused of something. You're facing potentially going to jail. Your marriage sounds like falling apart.
We were already divorced.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I mean, it just sounds like there was a lot of stuff going on in your real life post-career.
Well, yeah, I mean, at the time, honestly, my life was actually really good. I was making $450,000 working for ESPN and Fox and everybody, and I had custody of my children. I was doing all that, and things were actually really, really good. And it was my birthday. I had a couple of drinks, but really the way it spun out of control was, again, I had an ex-wife who was crazy, and she knew that she could take advantage of this. And you know, it made it look worse in the media than it did. But really what got me through it was two things. One, I was so used to dealing with the New York media that I knew that don't pay attention to what is being said about you. Stay faithful to yourself, stay true to yourself. And then the other thing was in January of 2010, I was at Saddleback Church in California. And Rick Warren's book, The Purpose-Driven Life, completely changed my life, really helped me in the beginning to go through these 3 years of waiting. But in 2010, I got to meet him for the first time. And we went in afterwards, after the service was over, talked to him, and kind of explained to him a little bit what was going on and how his book was giving me the inspiration to fight this and to have faith and believe. And he put his hand on me and she was my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, Michelle, and he said a prayer over us. And I told him a little bit about the state attorney and everything else. And he said, let the jury be just. Let them see through the smoke and mirrors of what the state is creating. And most of all, let Jim have the strength to see this to the end. Well, 2 months before trial, I got a phone call from my attorney that none of the evidence about the other driver was going to be presented in the courtroom, that I needed to seriously consider a plea because I was facing 15 years in jail. And the only thing that hit me when he asked me that was Rick Warren told me to see this to the end. I'm going to wait. I'm going to have faith and believe that. And sure enough, after 21 days of trial, the jury knew in 30 minutes that I did not cause the accident, but I was guilty of having a shot and a drink before I got in the car to drive, and therefore I should have had a DUI. And you know, like I said, a lot of things happened during those 3 years. I don't look at it as, you know, being as bitter as I was when I was going through it. A lot of positive things happened, and again, I met my new wife. I live out in California now, and one of the things I said when I walked out of that courtroom was, I will continue to change lives. I will continue to have an impact and make sure that this woman's death is not in vain. And that's kind of what I've been doing over the last 5 or 6 years, and now I've been blessed to work with a company like Warren Moon and Sports One and David Meltzer to be able to really give back and continue to give back through different platforms that we have.
Boy, Billy Ray, let me hold on. Hold on. I need him right now. Give me some reaction to what you just heard Jim Leyritz talk about with regards to faith.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't it kind of look and sound like the same kind of life that you go through as a baseball player? There's incredible peaks and terrible valleys, and it just sounds like you survived it all and came out on the other side.
But this was real life stuff.
Oh,
you know what I mean? This isn't, striking out in the World Series or having to put on the Yankees party at Junior Seau's restaurant even though you just got swept.
Gotcha.
I mean, this is somebody died here.
I know.
And you're facing like real life problems of possibly going to jail, an ex-wife who's trying to use this all against you, and a clergyman who obviously is a well-known person and has a huge following and a huge facility, et cetera, et cetera. This guy touches Jim, physically touches him and emotionally touches him, see this to the end, and he has the faith to do that. That's really, that's an amazing story. That really is. That's incredible. Well, Jim Leyritz, as we talk about you in front of you.
And I like a shirt, too.
Yeah.
That's a very nice shirt.
we actually, David Meltzer had these made for the Chargers because he's a Charger fan. We have the blue, and this is our Charger shirt. So
Dave Meltzer is an amazing guy and a good friend, and Warren Moon is a regular contributor to our radio show, and we must have you. I'm going to make this presentation to you right now. I don't have $450,000 to pay you, but I think what we should do to reintegrate you into the Padres world is, how about this? Why don't you join us during the baseball season as our Padres correspondent? You'll be watching Padre games. You like that idea?
Yeah. I'm all for that.
Yeah?
Definitely.
Okay,
definitely.
cool.
Yeah, again, like I said, I really would like to get back involved because we did do something special down there, and to be a part of that now that I live there, and I've got kids growing up in this area that they're going to be a part of, that area. And my middle son actually goes to San Diego Mesa College.
Oh, really?
So I go down there all the time to visit him. So it'd be great to be a part of it again.
Just to wrap things up, wasn't it interesting that at the end of your career, baseball career, the Padres traded you back to the Yankees?
Yeah.
And you got to finish there.
Yeah, that was I got traded back there after I broke my hand, and it was an interesting thing because Kevin Towers was a GM,
right?
And he called me up. I was in Vegas, and he called me up and said, "Jimmy, we're going to trade you back to the Red Sox." And I said, "No, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back there." And he's like, "Well, we're going to trade you either way because the deadline's coming up." He said, "What do you?" I go, "Give me 24 hours." I called up George Steinbrenner's secretary. He was a very good friend of mine, and said, "Debbie Nicolosi." I said, "Debbie, they're trading me back to the Red Sox. Please help me." And she's like, "Okay." So she went in and talked to George. In 24 hours, I was traded back to the Yankees.
Amazing.
Yeah.
See, this is the lesson.
That would have been tampering in today's world.
I want all young people who are watching this video to understand the lesson that Jim Leyritz just shared. Always make sure you befriend the boss's assistant, because he or she can make things happen when they have the boss's ear. This is a smart man.
Exactly.
Jim, it's a pleasure to be with you, man. Thank you so much.
Appreciate
and
you
thanks
guys
for sharing that
Thanks,
entire story. That was really cool.
No problem. Thank you.